Hello, welcome to Color 101 in DaVinci Resolve. In this crash course, I'm going to show you all the basics of the Color tab so you can start working on your projects today. So let's get right into it. So when you first open the Color tab, which you can do by clicking down here or simply hitting Shift-6 on the keyboard, this is what you'll see, the default layout. So I'm going to go through this top to bottom. So here on the top left, we can see the gallery, which you can enable or disable simply by clicking on it. In this space, we're able to save stills from our grading and apply them to other clips, or compare a previous grading. So let's say you made some changes to the color here, and you want to save this grading to apply it to another clip, or simply to compare it to the original one. Then all you have to do is right-click the image, and then grab still. And here it is. Right beside the gallery, we have LUTs, or lookup tables, which are basically presets of color that you can apply to your clips. And here you can find a bunch of them, and if you scroll through them, you'll see on the viewer how it'll look on your clip. Here we have the media pool, which is the same as the edit page, and you won't need it much. What you'll be using the most is the clips. Now this is a lot more useful than the timeline. This feature displays the clips with a little thumbnail with all the information of the clip, like the codec, the layer of the timeline it's placed, and right here you have a little box. When it's grayed out, it means your clip has no grading. But if you make some changes, you'll see a kind of rainbow will appear. That means you have a graded clip. Here on the top right, we have the timeline, which is, well, a little timeline that shows you where your clips are in the timeline. I myself don't use it that much, but it might be good for knowing what clip is selected on the timeline. Here, we can enable or disable the nodes. Yes, Color is a node-based tool, so you'll basically apply your grading into the nodes, and you can use as many nodes as you want. You have a few types of nodes, like serial nodes, parallel nodes, but I'm not gonna dive too deep inside it. For now, all you have to know is that you can add more nodes simply by hitting Option or Alt and then S on the keyboard, like this. Here we have the effects, and they work pretty much like the edit page. You can search for effects like blur, keen, and much more. Here we've got our main viewer, where we can see all our grading process, and there's a bunch of things we can do here. For instance, we can enable the split screen, and this tool helps you compare two or more different things. For example, if you click here and select the still grades, you can open your gallery, and you'll see it's comparing your original clip with your graded still. Here we've got the image wipe, which is also a comparing tool, but with a wipe, so you can play around with it to compare gradings. Here you can see the timeline you're working on, so if you have multiple timelines, you can choose between them by clicking on this arrow right here and then changing your timeline. This little rainbow right here is the bypass color grades. So if you do some grading, you can disable it and enable again to see what you've done. Here we have the expand tool, which you can use to make the viewer larger, and you can go back simply by clicking on it again. Here we have the highlight, which shows only the parts of the image that are selected when you use like the Qualifier, for example, which is a tool I'll show you in a moment. Now down here we have the actual color grading tools, and I'm gonna go through the most important ones. This is the camera raw. It lets you play around with raw clips. There are clips recorded by cameras such as Blackmagic or Red. These are the primaries, or color wheels. Here you can manipulate the colors, contrast, brightness, and pretty much everything you want from the image. Here we have the curves. Now this is a very powerful tool which you'll be using a lot. So here you have a lot more precision when you're working with your lighting. So the left bottom part of this curve are the shadows, and the top right is the highlights. So if you turn this down, the image gets darker, and if you turn this up, the image gets brighter. Here we have a qualifier, which is a tool that helps you make a selection to any color of the image. Here we've got the masks, which are used for isolating a part of the image. This is the tracker. Here's where you can track the masks you make. For example, let's say I want to make a mask right here. Now I want to track this movement. Then I'll go to the tracker and track it forward and reverse. And the color tab has a really great tracker. It's amazing how efficiently it works. Here we have the magic mask, which is also a very powerful tool if you have the studio version of Resolve. With this, you can simply make a stroke, and the AI will know what part of the image you want to isolate. This is great for color grading only a specific part of the image. Here we've got the blur. So in here, you can increase the blur or sharpen the image if you've got a blurry one. Here we've got the key, which is basically the opacity of the node, so you can make your grading softer or harder on each node. Here we've got the sizing, which is pretty much what the inspector does inside the edit tab. I actually never use it myself, but it's good to know it's there. Here on the bottom right, we've got the keyframes, where you can animate pretty much anything you do in the color tab, and here you've got the scopes. This is something you'll be using a lot. Now this displays all the information about the image, shadows, highlights, if the image is clipping or not, and you can pop it out by clicking on this expand tool right here. So if you have another monitor, you can simply place it there and keep looking at the scopes every time you make an adjustment to the image. Here you have the information, which shows you all the data of the clips in your timeline. And that's pretty much all the basics of the interface of the color tab. Next, we're gonna dive into the color wheels. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on part 2. Welcome to part 2 of Color 101 in DaVinci Resolve. In this part, I'm gonna walk you through the primaries, also known as the color wheels. So let's get right into it. So you can find the color wheels by clicking here, and you'll be faced with a bunch of tools that you can use to change the looks of your image. So keep in mind that in general, the color wheels should be used primarily for color correction before you start your grading, because they affect your image in a more general way. So you can see we have some wheels here: the lift, the gamma, gain, and offset. So the lift will affect the shadows or the darker parts of your image. The gamma will affect the midtones, and the gain will affect the highlights or the brighter areas of your image. And the offset affects all of your image and all of the ranges combined. So each wheel changes the hue and saturation of each range. So let's bring in the scopes. So if you move these around, you can see the colors changing. I know it seems like it's affecting the whole image, and it sort of is, but it's primarily affecting the darker parts of the image. Now let's reset it, and to reset you can click on this little arrow right here. As you can see, there's one for each color wheel, or you can simply double click inside the color and the little point will go back to the center. Now let's mess around with the gamma and the gain. And now the offset. And as you can see, right here below the color data, we have a master wheel. This affects the brightness of each luminance area of the image. So you can use this to balance your clip, making sure the dark areas are not too dark and the bright areas are not too bright. So let's take a look. The midtones. Now the highlights. Let's reset the node grade, and here you can reset all the changes you've made to the color wheels. Now we have a few more tools here. We have the temp, which controls the temperature of the clip. You can make it warmer if you go up, or colder if you go down. You can also reset it by double clicking on it. Here we have the tint, which changes the color of the image. Here we have the contrast, which is the difference between the darkest and the brightest parts of your image. So if you take a look at the scopes, if I go up, the highlights go higher and the lowlights go lower. And if I go down, the opposite happens. It loses contrast. Here we have the pivot, and it changes, well, the pivot or center point of the contrast. Down here we have the color boost. So if you take a look at the scopes, you'll see it increases the range of the color within the image. Here we've got the shadows and highlights that work pretty much like the master wheels of the lift and the gain. And here we have saturation. This tool changes the amount of color you have on the image. And as you can see, the colors get more vibrant if I go up, and less vibrant if I go down until we reach black and white. Here on hue you can play around with the hue of the image, make it more stylized if you want. And right here beside the color wheels we have the color bars. Now this will allow us to change the RGB values of the image. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. So every color inside the digital world is basically made of a mix of these three colors. And here we can change the values for each luminance range, the lift, the gamma, and the gain, and the general look in the offset as well. So here in the gain I can increase the red, decrease the blue, increase the green, and so on. Here beside the color bars we have the log wheels. Now they work pretty much the same as the color wheels, but a lot more precise. So the lift affects a lot more of the dark areas and the gain affects a lot more of the bright areas in comparison to the color wheels. And that's pretty much it for the primaries. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and I'll see you on part 3. Welcome to part 3 of Color 101 in DaVinci Resolve. In this part, I'm going to walk you through the curves, so let's get right into it. Now, you can find the curves right here. So the curves will work somewhat like the color wheels, but with the difference that you can work with specific areas of luminance, hue, or saturation within your image. And this is a very powerful tool, and you'll probably be using it in pretty much all of your gradings. So let's see how it works. So as you can see, we have this graph here. We're currently at the custom curves, as you can see right here, and this graph controls the contrast of our image. There are other types of curves as well that you can access right here, and I'll show you that in a moment, but for now let's stick to this one. So the left part of this graph represents the darkest areas in our image, and the right part represents the brighter ones. So if you bring up this bottom left point right here, you'll see the image starts to get brighter. That's because we're losing the blacks. And if we move this to the right, you'll see it gets darker. We're crushing our blacks. And the opposite happens if I move around the top right point. Like this. And like this. So we can pick any part of this curve and move it around. And we can do that by clicking on any point of the curve, let's say right here, and we'll create this point. If we move it up, we'll make the brighter parts of our image even brighter. And if we bring it down, we'll make it darker. And you can add as many points as you want. Let's add another one right here. And if I bring this up, we're brightening our darkest parts. And if I bring this down, We're making our shadows even darker. So to get a good contrast, most people do a sort of an S-curve, like this. This will bring you a very nice looking contrast. But it's not only that. You can also control the amount of red, green, and blue of your image in any specific area of luminance. So let me reset this, and let's try it out with the red. So if I create a point right here and move this up, I'm increasing the amount of red in my highlights. And if I bring this down, I'm removing the red color from my brightest areas. Same if I do it down here. I can add more red to my darkest areas, or remove red from my darkest areas. And that's basically how the custom curve works. Now right beside this one, we have the hue versus hue. Now this is a little bit different. As you can see, we have a flat line here. And this tool is used for making changes in specific hues of the image. So as you can see here, we have a histogram showing us what colors we're seeing most within our image. So as you can see, our dominant color in our image is this reddish orangish color. So if you want to mess around with a specific color, you have to create a point right on that spot on the line, like right here, and then create two placeholders beside it, one here and one here. Otherwise, you'll end up moving the whole line, and then you can change that specific hue by moving this point up or down, like this and like this. So basically what this tool does is to change the hue of a specific hue we choose. So next to hue versus hue, we have hue versus saturation. So it's the same graph as you can see. The difference is that now we can change the saturation of each hue. So if I pick this hue right here, I'll add my placeholders. Now we can increase or decrease its saturation. Let's take a look. Increasing saturation, decreasing saturation. And you can also broaden the range of the colors by moving these placeholders right or left. So next we've got hue versus luminance, where we can change the brightness of each hue. So let's pick our same hue, add our placeholders, and now let's move it around. So we are increasing the luminance of these areas, and now we're decreasing the luminance of these areas. Next, we have the luminance versus saturation. And here we can change the saturation of each area of luminance. So how saturated you want your shadows, midtones, and highlights to be. So let's choose our darkest areas of luminance, and let's increase the saturation of that part, or decrease the saturation. Now we have saturation versus saturation, which works just like the other ones. You can choose a specific area of saturation and make it more saturated, or less saturated. And last but not least, we've got saturation versus luminance, which works the same as well. You can choose a specific area of saturation and brighten it up or down. And that's pretty much the basics of the curves. So make sure to play around with it, test the tools on your own clips, and see how they work best for you. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on part 4. Welcome to part 4 of Color 101 in DaVinci Resolve. In this part, I'm going to walk you through the qualifier, the windows, also called masks, and the tracker. So let's get right into it. Now in the color page, you can find the qualifier right here. It's this little light dropper. So what does it do? It basically lets you pick any color in your image so you can change things in them. So as you can see, you can select things by hue, saturation, and luminance. So if I want to pick this color right here in this cloth, I can do that by creating a new node. Let's hit Option S on the keyboard, or Alt S if you're on Windows, and then clicking and dragging this part right here. Now I'm gonna turn on the highlight to see what I've selected. As you can see, the selection is too noisy, and we can adjust it by messing around with these tools right here. So we can increase or decrease the width, center, and saturation the high and low, and in luminance as well. You can also adjust things here with the pre-filter, clean black, which will clean the parts that we're not selecting, and clean white, which will clean the parts that we are selecting. Now if I want to change this hue, I can do that in the color wheels, like this. But the problem is, since there's too much of the image selected, this change will affect many parts that we don't want to be affected. So that's when the windows come in handy. So you can find the windows right here beside the qualifier. The windows are also called masks, and that's how I'm going to refer to them. I'm already used to that, but feel free to call them whatever you want. Now the masks are used to limit the area where you want to apply your color correction, color grading, or effects. So let me go ahead and show you the interface of the masks. So here we have a bunch of types of masks. We have a linear mask, which is this rectangle one. We have the circle mask, polygon mask, which is similar to the linear mask, but you can add more points to it, like this, and this, and this. And we've also got the curve mask, which allows us to draw the shape of the mask ourselves. And last we have the gradient mask, which is a simple two-handle control for dividing the screen in two halves. And you can manipulate the center, the angle, and the feathering of the mask. This one is very good for sky adjustments. So if we select a mask, we can see that on the right side right here, we've got two features. This one allows us to invert the selection of the mask. So now we're selecting everything that's outside of the mask. This is very helpful sometimes. And this one is the mask control. It changes the way a mask interacts with other masks. So if we add another one, we can see it's subtracting that part of the selection. That's good for masking out objects that are interfering with our original selection. Let's delete this one. So here we've got the transform area, where we can adjust all the properties of our mask. The size, the aspect, the pan, the tilt, the rotation, the opacity, and the softness. In this case, each side has its own softbox. Let's disable this mask. Now back to our grading, let's add a curve window or a curve mask to our cloth, like this. And since it's a still camera and the object isn't moving, we don't have to do any tracking for now. And as you can see, now the change of hue is only affecting this part we've isolated with the mask. But this is actually not the best way to use a qualifier, since you can use your curves to change a specific hue much more efficiently. Now a good use for the qualifier will be to adjust a certain area such as the skin tones. So let's reset this node grade. Let's go back to the qualifier. So let's turn on the highlights, and let's select this hand right here. Now let's isolate it with a circle mask. Let's adjust this. Let's adjust the width, like this. Now we have a problem, because this hand is moving up and down. So luckily for us, Resolve has a very powerful tracker tool, which you can find right here, beside the Windows button. So here we have a few buttons. We have track one frame reverse, track reverse, stop tracking, track forward and reverse, track forward, and track one frame forward. But we're pretty much going to be using the track forwards and backwards, since most of the times you're not going to be starting on the beginning or by the end, since the best way to track is to find a frame where your object is the most visible. So here we've got a few options to tell our tracker which sort of movement we want to track. If we want the pan, tilt, zoom, rotation, and 3D, which enables the tracking also of pitch and yaw. So I normally have all of these selected for accurate tracking. So let's put our tracker to work and see how it does. Okay, so as you can see, right at this point it loses its way. Now if it happens to you, there's a way we can solve this. We can change the tracker mode from clip to frame and adjust it frame by frame, like this, and this, and this, all the way until it vanishes away. And now, as you can see, the mask follows along the entire clip. And don't forget to go back to clip after you're done, or else every other adjustment you make to the tracker will stick to that specific frame. Now we can turn on our highlights again, a little bit of zoom, and now we can go back to our color wheels and adjust the midtone, for example. With this, you can make the skin softer, or even make it look older. So let's soften it up. So let's see how it looks with and without the effect. See the difference? And yes, I know it's affecting the plate a little bit, but it was just to show you how powerful this tool is. And that's pretty much it for the qualifier, windows, and tracker. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on part 5. Welcome to the final part of Color 101 in DaVinci Resolve. In this part, I'm gonna walk you through the node workflow. So let's get right into it. So now we're gonna get our hands dirty and do some actual color grading. Keep in mind that color grading is a subjective thing, and there's no really right or wrong. It's all a matter of feeling and taste. We can adjust things until you have a final image you like. Now, unfortunately, I can't share with you this clip I'm working on, but I'm gonna leave you a link in the description of the video for the Blackmagic Gallery, where you can download some ungraded raw footage to practice with. And don't worry, it's completely free. So now back to work. So as you can see here, we have an input, where our original image comes from, the node space, where we'll be doing all of our grading, and an output, where all we've done will be rendered. So on this first node here, what I'm gonna do is some noise reduction. And you can find the noise reduction right here on the motion effects. So if I zoom in the image, you can see it has a little bit of noise. And here in the motion effects, you can adjust that. So here we've got the number of frames. You can choose from 0 to 5. These are the number of frames you want DaVinci Resolve to average in order to separate detail from the noise. And the higher the number, the better the quality, but your processing will also get slower. I'm gonna choose 5. Here in the motion type, it picks the method DaVinci Resolve uses to detect motion in the image. So here we've got faster, better, and none. Faster will get you a fast processing, but a not so good image. And better will slow down your process, but will get you a better result. So I'm gonna go for it. The motion range refers to the amount of movement your clip has. So if you have a moderate to large amount of movement, you should use medium or large. Since I've got a still camera, I'm gonna choose small. Now here on Luma Chroma, we're gonna increase these sliders right here. Not too much, just until we get rid of some noise. So let's see the before and after, and we can do that by clicking on this number right here. It's very subtle, but it actually makes a big difference. Okay, now I'm gonna hit Option S and create another serial node. Now for this node, most people, myself included, would use a color space transform, which you can find here on your effects. This effect lets you transform this washed out log image to something more real. But I thought of approaching this in a more artisanal way. So here I'm gonna set the exposure myself. So let's first rename our nodes. We can relabel this noise reduction, and we can relabel this exposure. So now with this node selected, I'm gonna come to the color wheels, and if you look at the scopes, our colors are all crushed here in the middle, and that's because we've got no contrast at all. So I'm gonna bring down the lift, bring my shadows down, making sure I'm not clipping. I'm gonna bring my highlights up, and bring down my gamma a little bit. A lot better, right? So let's see the before and after. Now I'm gonna hit Option S again, and in this node I'm gonna mess with the temperature and saturation. So let's rename our node, and I'm gonna make it a little bit warmer, like this is fine, and also increase the saturation a little bit, like this. Let's see the before and after. Now another serial node, and I'm gonna adjust my contrast. So I'm gonna come to the custom curves, add a point right here and another one right here, and I'll go for my S curve. Bring down my shadows a little bit, just make sure I'm not clipping the image, and bring up my highlights a little bit, like this. Actually, I think I'm gonna bring down my highlights a little bit like this. Okay, another serial node. Now I think I've got too much red on my highlights, so I'm gonna remove that by coming on red here. I'm gonna add a point right here in my highlights, and I'm gonna bring down the red just a tad. See how we lose that magenta? Now I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna hit Option S, and then Option P and Option P to create two parallel nodes. Now this is just for my organization, since I'm gonna adjust the saturation in 3 parts of the clip, so I can have a better control of it. Oops, forgot to relabel my node. Now for this first one, I'm gonna pop a little bit this bread over here. So I'm gonna add a mask to it, like this. And now increase the saturation a little bit, like this. Cool. See? Now I'm gonna add a bit of saturation to this soup right here. So let's mask it as well, like this. And here we're gonna have to do some tracking, since I've got movement. So we're gonna come to tracking, and track forwards and backwards. Okay, let's come to our color wheels, increase the saturation, like this. Let's see how it looked before. And now, looking good. Now I'm gonna increase the saturation of this cloth right here. So let's come to the curves, hue versus saturation, and let's pick this color right here. Let's broaden the spectrum a little bit, like this, and increase the sat. Like this is fine. Now we're gonna make a mask here. I'm gonna choose the curve mask this time. And there we go, like this. Now let's see how it looks, before and after. Now I'm gonna click on my mixer right here, and I'm gonna hit Option S again to create another serial node. Let's bring this one right here. Now in this node, I'm gonna adjust the midtones of the skin of the hands. So now for this, I'm gonna use the magic mask. I'm gonna make a stroke right here, and another one right here. We remove this plate, and this. We remove this part right here. And there we go, we've got only the hand selected. Let's track it forwards and backwards. Okay, so now let's zoom in. Let's come to our color wheels, and let's adjust our midtones like this, bring it down. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, just a touch. Like this is fine. Now let's add another serial node, and now I'm gonna blur out this spoon. So let's bring our circular mask, put it right here, rotate it a little bit, make it smaller, zoom in a little bit. Let's go to the blur and increase the blur radius. Like this. Perfect. Now we've softened out the reflection a little bit. And now for my last node, I feel like adding some film grain. So we can find it right here in the effects. All we have to do is drag and drop it inside the node. Let's zoom in to see what we're doing. Let's play around with the texture, grain size, like this. Let's see the before and after. Okay, just a touch. And there you go, we've got our node tree. Now let's take a quick look at the before and after. And here's where we finish our color crash course. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.